Right, hello. This tutorial here is going to video demonstrate how to set up a grid line for your iPad, iPhone, or whatever device you're trying to use that you want a grid overline for into the screen protector. So the first thing that you'll need is you'll actually need a screen protector. Here I'm using a Super Shields that is specifically made. You can see down here that it's made for a Mini 4 tablet. So that's what I'm going to be using. Inside the kit, from what I'll be using, here you can see some alcohol prep pads, and there's a dry cloth towel that I'm going to use. Similarly, I'm going to use a roller here, and also a fine point Sharpie pen. So this is one of the real thin line ones. And also, I'm going to use this multitask tape. It has just a little bit more flexibility for unique surfaces. So that's what I picked up from the store. And we'll be using this primarily to draw our grid lines on and then adhering to the screen projector. What I'm going to do is I'm going to keep everything on the outside edge here of the screen. So here's my screen, and this is the part that is going to be the outside. The inside is going to be covered with this little tab here. So I'm not going to pull that sticker off until the end, until I'm ready to adhere. Also, be sure how you're holding it is going to be careful. You don't want to put fingerprints, especially on the inside when you go to stick this thing. But most of my work is going to be done on the outside. So you may just want to make sure, wherever you're going to potentially put grid lines, that you just kind of wipe it down, just give it a little once over to make sure that the surface is somewhat clean, so you don't have to have always dirt or whatever always displayed on the outside where you end up sticking these grid lines. But let's go a little bit over this. Supplementally, you'll see here that on my iPad I also pulled up a screenshot of me playing the game. What this is going to allow me to do is it's going to allow me to measure up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the 0 down here at the button because there's a nice guideline as to where that is on my screen protector. So if I put it towards the top of the button, measure up, I'm basically going to try to put it right at the very tip top, not of the ball, but of the actual curling grid point. And what I measured mine to be was about 1 11/16. So when I have the 0 down here on the edge and measuring up 1 11/16 inch, which would be, in terms of centimeters, can't really tell. I'd have to push that through a calculation, and the way this is ruler set up, they're kind of on opposite sides, but I would imagine that it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 or so centimeters. So what we're going to do here is we're going to get started, and I'm just going to kind of use this ruler as a measuring device. Now, how long you want the horizontal portion to be is up to you. You can see my screen's maybe a little over 4.5 inches here. So I'm probably going to stick with, say, 3 inches for my horizontal part. Measuring up vertically, I'll see that my screen is about 6.5 inches, give or take. And I don't want it going up above half, so I'm also probably going to keep it in the neighborhood of about 3 inches. So realistically, I'm probably going to just use 2 3-inch pieces of tape for this instructional video. So let's go over that. So one of the things that I'm going to probably end up doing is just kind of sticking temporarily the tape to my roller. It's going to help me measure. So I'm going to just kind of center this as best as I can. Just be very careful when you're putting the tape onto the roller. I'm going to try to keep the tape as centered as possible. I'm also going to try to put it on kind of a defining point, so I can kind of set that up and figure out. So I can see here is roughly about 3 inches. So we're just going to roll with that. And it's a little bit over 3 inches, but I'm cool with that. And you can see that I'm just sticking it to the roller. The reason that I'm sticking it to the ruler in a very straight manner is because I'm just going to take my pen down the edge of the line and it's just going to write on the inside of the tape now. Now, I did get a little bit of my fingerprint, so you might see just a little bit of transference, but what you'll see that I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my fine point marker, and you can see that I have a fine point, and I'm just going to draw on the tape using the straight edge. So here you can see that I've drawn. You can see that it's a very thin line. Once I actually pull it off, you'll be able to see the line much more easily. But you can see as I start to pull off, there's the line. So I was able to create a very nice straight edge, about 3 inches in length. If you're using an iPhone or whatever device else, you can just kind of scale it how you want it. I'm going to go ahead and set up 2 pieces of tape like this. And what I'll do probably for the short term is just kind of hold it off, and here you can see the full piece of the tape with the line on the inside sticky part. When you draw on the inside sticky part, what it's going to allow you to do is it will allow you to keep all that transference from happening onto your finger as you use more and more touches. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of stick it off the edge of the counter for now, just like that. And we'll grab it at a later time. In the meanwhile, I'm going to set up a second set just like that and just try to kind of measure kind of briefly in the vicinity of where I want and set it up very similarly. Try to keep it as centered as possible. Stick it to the tape just like I did last time. And you'll see that I just kind of stick it halfway down the ruler here. And again, this ended up being maybe just 3.5 inches this time. It's a little bit longer. I'm okay with that. I'm just going to go ahead and use it. Probably use this one for the north crosshair. And all I'll need to do is similarly, I'll just draw on the inside of the tape again. So I'm just going to take my fine point marker and draw right up the edge, similar as before. And as I pull off the tape, you'll see that I have a straight edge, again, that I've drawn right on the inside of the tape. And that is on the inside. And we will use this one that we'll save for a later time as our north edge. So we'll use that for the vertical, and we'll use the other one that we made, since it's just a little bit shorter, for my horizontal. So what you'll be able to do also, if you want, you can create a very small one up here. It's going to be a little bit harder to get the alignment how you want, but you can try your best to kind of overlay this kind of in this fashion. If you want one for your wind, this will be a little bit more difficult to do, but you can kind of use your measuring tool to the best of your ability and just try to draw a straight edge up there as well. What you'll need if you want to try to do that is you'll need to kind of bisect it in between I and N in wind. If it bisects the I and N up there in the corner where it says wind, it is essentially a center line going through. So the more that you get it exactly through the I and the N, the better that it will work. I'm going to just skip that because I feel confident enough in my abilities, but I did just want to at least mention it just in case some of you do want to do that. But what I'm going to do, first off, I'm going to just make sure, as I mentioned, just for the outside, make sure that everything's kind of somewhat wiped off. And aside from this, I'm going to use an alcohol prep pad on my iPad now. So you'll see that I'm pulling from the alcohol prep. And here's the cloth. And all I'm going to do is take it completely over the screen here. Try to get this as best as we can wiped down of all things that could be on the screen currently. So just make sure you give that a nice clean wipe. And then go ahead on top of that, just go ahead and use the dry cloth to make sure that you create a nice surface so you'll be able to stick easily once you actually pull off that back sticky part. So here what you're going to see is I'm going to pull up I actually have this little guideline here. I just pulled this from the internet. I just typed in like center line on my screen, and this is basically right down the center. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this for my vertical line to just make sure that I put it very straight. So that one that I mentioned, I'm going to make sure that I just basically put it on the screen very straight. So here you can see what I'm doing. I'm putting the screen protector, the outside cover, and I'm just lining it up with my device. And then other than that, I just need to make sure that I have that overlay on to help me basically just put this on very straight. It's just a kind of a trick that I'll be able to use here for this direction. And what you'll see here is that I have a new straight line on my screen protector. It's going to be on the outside, and you can see that I'm just going to kind of stick it down as best as I can here. And just have that straight line. I'll show you what it looks like in terms of the game. So once I actually get it adhered, it'd be nice if I don't touch the screen while doing this. But you can see that what it's going to do is it's just going to create a nice visual straight line here. I'll have to get it, aligned properly, but it's going to be essentially a straight line up through the center once I actually play around with it and get it fidget. But that's what you'll be looking at, and you'll be able to use that for your ring adjustments. Similarly to this, we're going to do this also for the horizontal. But as I mentioned, we kind of measured where we want to put it. So I'm going to use my measuring, and I'm just going to measure up from that top line where I mentioned and just try to stick it right in that position. So right at about 1 11/16 inch from the very bottom, from the very top of the center circle hole. And now what you'll see here is I have a screen grid line. So I'll be able to use these to count rings. I'll use this edge to count the rings, and I'll use this as more or less a center line. So there you have that portion, and then all you'll need to do is basically just adhere it to the screen here, and you'll be able to have yourself a nice, decent grid that you can use to help you with your ring adjustments for Golf Clash. So let me go ahead and pull off this back sticker, try to get it as centered as possible. And here what you'll see is it comes up in game. It looks like I was a smidge off of the center for the actual center line, but you'll see that it's a very nice straight edge. And you'll also see that I'll be able to set up using my curl now. I'll make sure that I always keep the ball to the top of this line here with the top of the ball. And it'll avoid myself from overpowering when I go to curl using this. So hopefully you found this video helpful. I hope that it improves your scoring in the future. And you see that, now that I have this, it's just basically, always going to be on my screen, and I'm always going to be able to use it. Now, I did buy a 2-pack, so if this one ever gets old and stops working the way that I want, I can always use a second one from this kit. This was a 2-pack kit. Might be something worth investing in. Good luck, guys. Let me know how it turns out for you guys. Hopefully you guys found this tutorial helpful. And feel free to comment and let me know how it's working for you. Thanks, guys.